Hey everybody, it's Matthew of Mr. Domestic, where I spread joy and positivity through sewing and fabric play. This video I am going to show you how to make a jelly roll friendly hexagonal hexagonal tree skirt. And it is stunning. I didn't have a jelly roll myself, but I cut the fabric to where it would work if you had a jelly roll, like a spare jelly roll that you wanted to use. It takes 39 strips with the fabric strips that are 25 inches, and jelly roll generally has 40, so this is perfect for it. And if this is what you're here to learn before we get into the content, anytime you're enjoying it, make sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Now let's get ready to have some fun together. So this tutorial I have done on Brothers Stitching Social, and this video is kind of an add-on. So I have a step out tutorial that is in the link in the description here that you're going to get a lot of the basic information like the cuts. You'll be able to slow down and really zoom in on things. Like the first half, which is the more rudimentary type of sewing, is where I'm just going to talk through some images, and then halfway through the project I'm going to show you some of the sewing steps that were a little bit more complicated to help you out with that tutorial. So in full disclosure, just so you know, I'm sponsored by Brother. I work with them. I've always used their stuff like in 99% of my sewing, so it was a natural partnership, but wanted to disclose that in this video. Love them. So in this tree skirt, I used 13 different fabrics. So if you're not working with a jelly roll, I used 13 different fabrics, and I cut 3 width of fabric strips by 2.5 inches of each fabric. So each fabric will have 3, and then there will be 13 different fabrics. And I sewed them all together, like staggering them, as you can see in this diagram. And then I trimmed it using a 60-degree angle. So it created an equilateral triangle, essentially. But at the top of the triangle, I moved over 3 inches, and then I started the descent diagonal. And if this is like too fast for you, just remember that you have the step out tutorial on Brother Stitching Social for reference. I recognize that I'm going to rattle through some of these steps pretty quickly. And then once you have that, because you're going to end up with 3 different staggered set of strips that you've sewn using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're going to end up with 6 sections that are going to create the hexagon that you can see in this diagram here. But it's really like this diagram does no justice. The actual fabric put together, look in this photo, is like bananas. It's very different than anything that I've done, and I am obsessed with the boho feel of this. So with 5 of the seams, I did it normally, like right sides together to where the seams are on the bottom. But then 1 of the seams I did wrong sides together, and that is going to be an exposed seam. And I'm going to use that as the back opening that you're going to use to put around the tree to go in the back. But I leave it intact to help with quilting. So once all of this is done and pressed, then put it on some batting. I use fusible batting. There's an heirloom 100% cotton fusible batting that I used from Hobbs. Oh my goodness, it saved so much time. But if you don't have fusible batting, you can base the batting on there. And then I stitch basted the perimeter. I stitch basted the center hexagon. And then I stitch basted either side of that exposed seam. I sewed a 1/4 inch, either a 1/4 inch or an 1/8 inch in place. And I used a 5mm stitch length just to keep the batting in place. And then I trimmed off all of the excess batting on the exterior and in the center hexagon. And then boom. All you have to do from here is however you want to quilt. If you want to do what I did, which I just sewed a line, like I stitched in the ditch of the 5 main seams that were going from the outside towards the center just to keep it in place. That's all I did. But if you want to go to town with your quilting and be really, really, really like extravagant, then you might want to have some kind of lining fabric underneath. I didn't use it because I didn't need it. It was pretty minimal quilting, but that would help with some of the more extravagant, elaborate quilting. And then once it's all quilted and you're good to go, then you will flip it on top of a long sheet. I think I used 2.5 or 3 yards of fabric. It was a denim fabric that I used on the back because it's 58 inches wide, and I believe that this tree skirt is 54 inches, so I had enough there, and I used 2.5 yards, and I just laid it on there right sides together, and I pinned it in this direction using pins. I don't pin very often, but this was one of the times that I pinned just to keep the perimeter intact and to keep the center intact. Those are the two places that I pinned, and then I took it over to Alfonso. Okay, so this is about the time that I thought that I should record this in real time to help y'all out. So I'm just gonna go around the perimeter right here, all the way around the outside, and then I'm gonna get that center circle, and let me make sure it's on the right stitch. That looks like maybe it's a 1/2 inch, maybe it's a 1/4 inch. I just like lining it up there, so whatever that is. And I'm gonna go all the way, and this is why I put the pins this way, because I knew I could remove them that way. So just take this and sew all the way around the perimeter, then all the way around the center, and I'm not going to do it in real time. I'll fast forward. Okay, so now that all of that is secure with stitching and you have cut off the excess fabric on the outside of the perimeter and the inside of the center hexagon, then with a rotary cutter and a ruler, where that exposed seam is, there should be the 2 lines that were on 1/4 inch on both sides of that seam. So you'll be able to center the ruler right there and center it on that seam, slice it, and since there was a 1/4 inch excess of fabric on both sides of that raw seam, then just trim that off and square it up and you're good to go. And then just turn it right side out, press it, and then all you have left to do is to bind the 2 straight lines. And then I got some 2.5 inch bias binding that I already had made that seemed to work with it, and then I'll show you how to bind it right here. So the only thing that's left is to bind each of these edges now that they're all cleaned up. See how it's clean? I found some 2.5 inch double fold bias tape that I already made for a previous project, and it's done, and it mostly matches, so I'm gonna use that. And if this is the first time that you've ever seen binding like this, I have a video on it that will slow it down, but essentially you fold this one in half, and then starting on the back, I'm going to, once again, use this edge. I think it's a 1/2 inch. I'll figure it out one of these days, and then just sew it. That, making sure all of the edges are lined up. I'll fast forward to the end. And so now essentially this is going to fold over, like you're going to sew on the front now, right? It's going to fold over to the front like so, and it's going to look gorgeous, gorgeous. But see how this is folded over like this? What I am going to do here, and this is kind of like doing a placket, and I'll probably do it a couple times so that you can see it. See how it's like this? It's folded all the way over like this. See, like this? And then you can tell that it's going to, right here, that's where you're going to fold it over. Instead of doing that, fold this even to where like it's like that. I know this might be new for some of y'all, but I'm going to do it again. So it's folded like this. Instead of folding it forward like you would traditionally, I want you to fold it like this to where this, it goes slightly over that because that's where it's going to land. And then what I want you to do right here, and this is going to make it fancier, just look really flush and professional. So right here, do not sew this part of it, just sew the binding part and follow the line of the tree skirt. And I'll show you real quick why. So see how I followed the line right there? The stitch? I'm going to trim this like this. And then when you flip it over, trim that right there. Do not get the stitch. When you flip it over, oh, there it is. I found my turner. Like that. So make sure to open that up. Okay, now I have the pocket. Pocket is done. Yes, see? Pocket. It's in there. It's fitting. It's beautiful. And you're not going to be able to see that. So do that to this side and then the other side. And then I'll show you what I'm going to do. Let me go do the other side off camera and I'll come back and I'll start stitching here. Now I have fully prepped this and I glue basted all of this down to make it simple. And now all I'm going to do is right here, I am going to edge stitch this. So I'm just going to come in just a little bit onto that and right there. Do it all the way down on one side and then I'm going to bind the other side off camera. So I'll fast forward through this part, and when I come back, we will have a finished tree skirt. And once it's all bound, you are ready to go. Just put it around your tree. Put presents on it if you got them. Enjoy it. Like, honestly, I love this so much that I want to find a way to use it year round. Maybe as a tablecloth you can do this, or like smaller like hexagonal pillows. This technique you can use for so many different things and use up those jelly rolls if you have them. If you don't have them, then you can get like my fabrics. But yay, you will have an heirloom Christmas tree skirt that was easy peasy pudding pie, fast and fabulous. And if you have some time, you can get it done this season. So if you enjoyed this video, if you got a laugh, a tip, or a trick, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Keep it positive, y'all. Mr. Domestic out.